Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed with DrPND, where we help you reclaim your health with tips, tools, and resources to live your most optimal and vibrant life. Here's your host, DrPND.
Hello and welcome. This is DrPND. I'm your host for Your Health Reclaimed. Thank you for joining us. I know we have been absent for a few weeks. We had a great vacation in Europe, and now we are back refreshed and ready to go again. Well, today, the topic is going to be a very important one, pretty much among the most important topics that I like speaking about, and one that really is the most essential in the cause of chronic disease in our current society, modern society. And that is the use of linoleic acid, which is the most destructive ingredient in your diet, most likely. And especially if you're actually eating the standard American diet of the usual fare that people eat. So today I want to kind of give you a story at a glance and then dive with a little bit more detail of where did this ingredient actually come from? How did the whole thing started? I'm not going to go much into history or detail, but I kind of want to give you guys an idea so you understand the gravity of the problem, where did it come from, and ultimately what we need to do, what you need to do to address this permanently. So linoleic acid, as a lot of you guys know, it's a fat. And fats are, as you guys know, the primary building blocks of our cell membranes. This is one of the reasons why eating the right types of healthy fat is so important for our health and ultimate longevity. While most nutritional experts blame the epidemic of chronic disease on the increase in sugar consumption, the role of sugar is relatively, I say, it's not minor, but relatively minor when compared to the impact of the industrial vegetable seed oils that are known as linoleic acids, and I'm going to talk about today. There are two basic types of fatty acids based on how many of their carbon bonds are paired with hydrogen. You guys know those are saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats are further subdivided into monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, also known as PUFA, P-U-F-A, depending on how many pairs of hydrogen atoms they're missing. I know some of you guys a little bit more than you guys asked. That's just biochemistry 101. But anyway, the main dietary PUFA or polyunsaturated fatty acids are the omega-3 and the omega-6 fats. Again, all of you guys have heard this and know those. But while your body does need these, it needs them in a very relatively small quantities. The most pernicious toxin in our modern diets and the fat that we need to minimize the consumption of, or honestly best avoid at all times, is the omega-6 fat called linoleic acid, or LA for short. The LA makes up an estimated of 60 to 80% of the omega-6 fats and really is the primary contributor of our chronic disease epidemic that we see in our country and generally in Western society. That also includes Europe. I just came from there. Last year, I was there for the first time in 33 years, and I can vouch for the very heavily physical degenerated state of the country, of the people. And I'm talking, you can see the deficiency and debility in young people, teenagers, and even younger sometimes. Heart disease is rampant. It is still the number one killer. So is cancer and diabetes. But heart disease especially is rampant. While I was there, I was able to speak to a couple of physicians, one of them being a cardiovascular specialist that has studied the history in my country, Bulgaria, generally in Eastern Europe, with heart disease. And one of the facts that nobody denies is, whether they understand why or why not, but is that in the 50s, they started seeing a massive influx of heart attacks and strokes, which kept on rising and rising. And then in the 70s and 80s, diabetes, type 2 diabetes became very noticeable. And that was something that really in the early 1900s was really not, really noticeable, because primarily did not exist. And if it did exist, it was usually a very, very older population. But nonetheless, that is still going on right now in my country. As of last year, the death rate is actually double the birth rate. So it's not a good promise at all. So anyway, I would like to talk about the fats and how to distinguish them, and ultimately again what to do about them. So the fats, which are water insoluble biological molecules known as lipids, you might see the interchangeable term quite a bit. They're the primary building blocks of our cell membranes. Okay, you guys remember in basic biology class we have the phospholipid bilayer of every cell of our body, which we have 100 trillion cells, whatever the estimate is. And every one of those cells has a cell membrane, and the cell membrane is made primarily of the lipids. So this is why one of the reasons eating the right types of fats is so important for our health and longevity. And you guys remember, we are what we eat, correct? So if we eat the wrong stuff, we are going to get cellular damage. And ultimately, that is how chronic disease begins in the damage of our cells. All right, so what distinguishes one fat from another is really the specific combination of the fatty acids and what they're composed of. The properties of the fats and the fatty acids depend on the hydrogen saturation and the length of the molecules, also referred to as the chain length. So as we spoke, there are two basic types of fats. Okay, they are based on their carbon bonds and what they're paired with hydrogen. So saturated fats are fully loaded with hydrogen atoms, forming straight chains that are typically solid at room temperature. And examples of that include lard, tallow, butter, and coconut oil, whether from animal or from plant. Regardless, these are unprocessed, unrefined, fats, and they are your typical example of a saturated fat. Unsaturated fats have lost at least one of the pairs of the hydrogen atoms and in the chain, and therefore they come in two varieties known as mono and polyunsaturated. Monosaturated are missing one pair of hydrogen atoms, and the polyunsaturated fats are missing more than one pair of hydrogen atoms, hence the name poly, right? It could be 2, 3, or many. So the loss of hydrogen results in molecules that kind of kink and bend and shape in different bonds and form double bonds. And the more hydrogen pairs that are missing, the more the molecule bends, which ultimately causes the molecules to occupy more space. This is what makes the fat, a liquid oil at room temperature. So your olive oil and other like palm kernel oil and so forth, if you notice, they're mostly they're liquid at room temperatures. The industrial seed vegetable oils are oils that have been very high amounts of hydrogen removed from them, and if you notice, you can refrigerate them and still they will actually remain liquid. So I want to kind of get into a little more detail regarding what they are, but I think I'm going to spare you guys the 101 organic chemistry lesson. But the problem with the polyunsaturated fats, and again, strictly speaking, the industrial seed oils that we see, and that's going to be cottonseed, sunflower seed, rapeseed, I believe peanut oils, and a lot of palm kernel oil as well, if they're refined. Any of those popular oils that you guys see in the supermarkets, when you walk into the middle aisle, and they're all at liquid temperature. They're all liquid at room temperature. These are very dangerous oils. And the reason being is because they have been refined and processed in a very harsh way that really the end product does not resemble molecularly anything like the fresh, pressed oil that began with. So for instance, when they, extract cottonseed, the cottonseed oil, if you get cottonseeds and you actually, press it, press and cold extract, you get oil. But the cottonseed that you're going to get, in the supermarket or any of those processed refined products, is completely molecularly different and makes it very dangerous to the cellular function of the body. One of the easiest ways you guys can understand and see how actually those type of unhealthy fats feed into the physiology of the body is if you look at somebody who has severe cellulite, and you're going to see this like a crumbly cottage cheese looking aggregation of fat under the skin. And that's a good example, believe it or not, of some of the damage that those fats do. The body does not process them, does not use them the way it does normal biological healthy fat. Okay, whether it will be something from like butter or tallow or ghee, olive oil, pressed cold, cold pressed, even cottonseed oil or anything like that. And those oils do a lot of metabolic damage to the physiology of the body. They begin to damage the cells, particularly the mitochondria. They begin to damage the cell wall, the cell membrane. And over time, they begin to cause tremendous amount of inflammation in the body, which ultimately leads to some type of chronic disease. If you ever go and buy any kind of processed food, organic or not, makes no difference, but bread and cookies and oils, dressings, pastries of any kind, pretty much anything in a package that is not refrigerated, you'll easily see that it's going to contain some type of industrial seed vegetable oil, whether that will be canola oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, sunflower, safflower, any of those oils. They do. And the rampant use of those oils is unfortunately, very dangerous. And because you cannot really eat healthy if you're eating processed foods, regardless if they're sugar-free or not, or if they're organic or not, and not get those oils in. And our consumption of those oils has drastically increased and has been increasing. A quick history lesson. In a nutshell, the first hydrogenation of vegetable seed oil began in 1866. I believe Procter and Gamble, they found a way, not the patent or not, but they found a way to hydrogenate cottonseed oil and soybean oil, and ultimately they made fake lard, what you guys know as Crisco. And the industrial and mass spread use of those products in food began in the late 1800s, to the point that actually in 1902, the head of the board of directors, Harvey H. Wiley, he's a medical doctor, he's the head of the board of directors of the former FDA, which back then was known as the Food and Drug Acts of America. He, along with a few of his colleagues, really started speaking highly against the continuous and large spread use of those oils in the general population's food supply. They could be okay for temporarily under war or under some kind of famine, of course, because they hold really well. But the fact was that, the regular daily use of those oils caused problems, and they started to see that. Well, Harvey H. Wiley and his colleagues that stood with him were actually ousted of the board of directors of the former FDA. And he wrote a book, which, believe it or not, was never published due to his wife actually being bribed not to do it in 1938. But you can find a copy of the book. I have it. And it's really amazing to actually see the recorded conversations, the court hearings and so forth of all the processing of the foods and the preservatives and especially the oils. Anyway, but if you guys do a little bit dig deep and do some research, you're going to really see where the hydrogenated vegetable oils have started becoming very prevalent in our food supply. Of course, like anything else, it's going to take a while for the mass population to start to present, major problems. So it was not until the 30s and the 40s that they started kind of seeing difference of, heart disease, heart attacks, and so forth. I should have some statistics from back then, when actually see from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, the difference in heart attacks and strokes that exponentially increased with the consumption of those oils. So it is very important to understand that concept that those oils are very, very dangerous. The perfect and what I call the pinnacle example of that is if you look at a Twinkie. Everybody knows that a Twinkie will survive a nuclear war. And, you can go Google and YouTube, Twinkie and how long they last and how they last, and you'll see that. This is obviously the worst of the worst, but the example is there that the twig is made of that fully hydrogenated oils is the main ingredient, and how long it lasts. It's a very metabolically damaging substance, an ingredient. So when you go shopping, look at the back of the ingredient label. Don't look at the nutritional fact label. Don't look at anything else, but look at actually the ingredient label and see what the ingredients list say. And if you see anything with, any kind of vegetable oils, whether it's hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated, fully hydrogenated, it doesn't matter. Avoid it at all costs. That includes things like jams. That includes things like peanut butters, nut butters in general. That's how they actually can make them really creamy and soft without clumping. So you want to avoid that. Dressings. Look at any conventional dressings, especially you're going to see the first ingredient is going to be soybean oil or canola oil, sunflower oil, which is becoming quite popular as well. Any of those oils, they have to be removed out from your diet, because that is an absolute metabolic poison. I'm trying to keep this short and brief and get to the point of this, but you guys really have to think every time you shop and what you buy, because ultimately when you shop based on what you buy, you're also supporting those products, and there's not a safe amount of those kind of unhealthy metabolically damaging fats in the human diet. They're not natural. They're never meant to be. Now, as a matter of fact, if you actually Google the process and how it's made, and if you really look at, I'm gonna see if I can find this, how a modern edible oil processing works. It's amazing. You can look it up, actually. Fats and Oils, Formulating a Processing for Application by Richard D. O'Brien, 1988. But basically, you ultimately have the crude vegetable oil. So say you have cottonseed oil, and they take the cotton seeds, they wash them and so forth, and they mill them, they press them, and the oil comes out. Now, that's a real oil, not a problem. Not it's healthy necessarily to use all the time, but it hasn't been processed. But they take the crude oil, and they'll what's called a degumming process. Then from there goes to a caustic refining. And the second process from there is called pre-bleaching. Then from there it goes to dewaxing. Then from there goes to a process called hydrogenation. Then goes to another process called post-bleaching. Then it's either emulsified, depends what they use it for, bulk of oil shipments, and they make plastics out of it, different things. Or if not, it can go to fractionation, winterization, and interesterification. I'm sorry, I couldn't read it. It was kind of blurred. Yeah, so interesterification, esterification is a chemical process. They go to blaming, then they go to deodorization, and from deodorization, they can go to salad oil filling and packaging. Then from there, they can also use it as for flaking or spray chilling for packaged foods and so forth. It goes to another form of plasticization, which from there they make either shortening of some kind or margarine, or they can just put in a bulk oil shipment for storage, and those oils last forever. Okay, there's virtually no expiration date technically on those. So this is just a brief overview of the chemical processes. There's nothing mechanical here. It's literally all heavy chemical processes to either chemicals and or high heat and pressure. So that kind of gives you an idea of the damaging effects that you can only imagine to take place. These oils are very unstable. They're also full of free radicals. And again, the biggest problem is that our bodies do not have the biological signature to properly digest, metabolize, absorb, and utilize the fatty acids appropriately, just like you would from a natural, normal, healthy fat, whether it be unsaturated or not. One of the problems that I can vouch for myself, I see in my profession, that are associated with the consumption of polyunsaturated oils are increased cancer, heart disease, wrinkles and premature aging, overall immune system dysfunction, prostaglandin production, overproduction. You have liver damage, think fatty liver disease. You don't have people sitting here eating butter and real lard and coconut oil and getting fatty liver disease. You have people that are eating processed food and getting liver diseases, particularly non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You have damage to the reproductive organs, the lungs, digestive disorders, the polymerization of those unstable fats, increased levels of uric acid, I see that all the time, impaired growth in children, and actually either very high or very lowered cholesterol. So I hope I kind of, spoke a little bit in more detail that I wanted to, but I just want to give you guys, heed, the warning and how serious these, unhealthy metabolic poisons are. And the other thing too is, I know there's been a war on saturated fat. Obviously, things have kind of come down a lot. Now it hasn't been vilified as much as it used to be. But you still have people coming out there and speaking against saturated fat. First of all, when we talk about saturated fat, we only talk about whether it's animal or plant, unrefined, unprocessed, unadulterated, unoxidized, unrinsed, certified, healthy fat. Okay, whether is from plant-based or from animal-based. So the saturated fats, by the way, again, we're talking about healthy ones, are extremely important for our physiology. So real quick, for the benefit of those, they're essential for healthy function of the cellular membranes. Okay, your brain, if you talk to anybody who understands human physiology, you can see the amount of high rate of composition of saturated fat in our brain and what the brain cells are made of. Hormones, endocrine hormones are absolutely produced from saturated fats indirectly, and that fuels that, and it's used in the production. Inflammation, healthy saturated fats will suppress inflammatory responses. Heart disease, it will actually lower bad cholesterol. It can raise good cholesterol. Omega-3 fats, that they're put into tissue, they can serve. When it comes to diabetes, saturated fats help insulin receptors. Immune system gets enhanced. Also encourages production and balance of optimal, prostaglandin production and utilization in the body. As opposed to trans fats, they interfere with healthy function of the cellular membrane. They interfere with hormone production. They encourage, either overactivity or suppression of the immune system. They'll actually lower lipoprotein A. Raise lipoprotein A and lower good cholesterol. The omega-3s will be reduced in the levels in the tissues. As opposed to saturated fat, we have a healthy saturated fat. You have ingesting omega-3s at the same time. It helps to, put those healthy, omega-3s in tissues and store them there. Our immune system is depressed with trans fats, depresses production and causes imbalances, inflammation, in the immune system. So there's a lot of damage that these things, do. And I just really, urge you to, think well and hard before you guys, keep consuming those oils. So you say, like, what foods do we have that contain those? Pretty much any processed junk food. First of all, anytime you go to a restaurant, they're going to cook with some kind of vegetable oil without fail. Anytime you're buying sauces, anytime you're buying dressings, they, especially conventional, they're going to have those oils. Candy, candy bars, gums, pretty much any and all junk food is going to have that, whether it's an Oreo cookie, whether it's some kind of form of chips, it doesn't matter. In addition, lately with the advent of organics and the popularity of organics, now you have certified organic corn chips, which in of themselves they're healthy. They might use sea salt, they might use organic blue or yellow or white corn, which is not a problem, but they use organic canola oil or canola sunflower oil or soybean oil. Organic or not makes no difference. First of all, once those oils goes to this severe processing, this chemicalization and high heat and high pressure processing, it makes no difference whether it's organic or not. It literally does not. But you always have to be a detective. You always have to know what you're looking for and really pay attention to what you buy, because ultimately, again, you vote with your dollar in your fork. So if you keep buying stuff like that, they're gonna keep producing that stuff for you. But anytime you go to a fast food restaurant, you're getting doused with those oils, no matter what. Anytime you see any kind of fat or oil or anything, whether it's a dressing, whether it's dripping from the hamburger or from the chicken nuggets, whatever it might, I don't care if it's grilled, it does not matter. It is going to have vegetable oils in them. Again, restaurants, you really have to be selective. If you go to high-end restaurants, a lot of times, they will give you the choice. So they'll actually use real olive oil, or they'll cook with lard or ghee or butter, whatever it might be. Drinks, believe it or not, certain, food colorings blend really well with oil. So you might have, powdered drinks like Einstein lemonade or something like that, Kool-Aid, they'll actually have, vegetable oil in the mix. They're really pernicious. They're really everywhere. So you really have to do your diligence when you select your food, because again, they are everywhere and they accumulate very effectively, very easily. And because they are everywhere, you might be getting minuscule amounts, but over time, these things get really, really, accumulate into your tissues and cause damage. So I really urge you guys to pay attention again and be really careful, because you are what you eat, and these, frankenfoods and these, toxins will cause damage. Anyway, if you guys have any questions, you can guys post them. If you want any more details or I can help you in any way, look us up at drpnd.com. I do a free consultation, and if you guys need any help, I can help you with, I'll gladly do so. And that is it for today. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for your valuable time and for listening to the Your Health Reclaimed podcast with Dr. PND. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a person you know it can help. If we can help you in any way, or you would like to connect with Dr. PND, please visit drpnd.com. That's drpnd.com.